Good evening. Tonight we speak to the mothers, especially the mothers. But I want to say, as Arno said when he spoke to the fathers, this also includes the dads. It's not just for the mothers. I think just for me, being a mother and being a stay-at-home mom with all the children, I think this is just something I want to speak a few words just for those kinds of mothers. For all mothers, but especially I think mothers being with their small children all the time. There are a few things, as with everything in life, I think there's a few things that's applicable when you are full-time with your little ones all the time. One of the things that I especially thought was, sometimes we think, but this is too difficult, this is too hard. When you've had a hard day and everything seems to go wrong and nothing seems to work and the kids are all over the place, or they are having a bad day and they're not well and everything is just going haywire. What really spoke to my heart was that we were made for this. We were made for this. Sometimes we feel so inadequate. Sometimes we feel like it's too much and I cannot do this. I do not have the capacity. But to constantly remind yourself that I was made for this. When we saw those, the scientific facts that when a woman is, or a baby girl is born, all the OV cells, all the children that she could potentially have is already in her, even at birth. It is for me such a, dit bewys dit so. It just so proves that we were made for this. It is so special for me to think that God, even when we were just born, it is so part of us to be a mother already. Even though it will be years before it will be a reality to be mothers, it's already there and everything is built into us. So even as the potential for children and for motherhood is inbuilt, I believe also the capacity, the ability to handle your children are in you. And it is all the provision for being in control. For not feeling I'm losing this battle. It is just too much. It's not going to work. I'm not going to cope. But all that potential is in us. And as in everything else in life, we are victorious. Sometimes we have to keep reminding ourselves of that. And sometimes, as the word says, and it is so true that in all things in life, we have to keep our eyes on Christ. And that is why the word says that, keep your eyes on Christ. Because as Peter found in the boat, when he looked at the waves, it was just too much. And even with Jesus standing right in front of me on top of the water, he just started drowning right there and sinking. But to realize that I have the capacity, and if he says I have the capacity, then I do. And whatever it looks like right now, doesn't look like that right now. But I am in control and I am victorious. And it will all work out eventually. Maybe not at this moment. Maybe not in an hour's time. But eventually there is a solution and it will work out. And that's the important thing, is to keep that in mind. So another thing is, we always blame ourselves for our mistakes. We are so quick to think that we are not enough. We haven't done it right. We constantly chastise ourselves. We don't even need other people to tell us that we've done something wrong. We make lists and lists in our heads, and we tell ourselves what we've done wrong and what we could have done better. And I remember in the evenings very much aware of giving enough attention to my children, and in the evenings when I would put that baby to bed and thinking, especially with the first ones, because later on, of course, there's lots of room for improvement, but especially with the older ones, I would put them in bed and the first one and stand there and think, but I didn't give enough attention, I didn't do enough, another day is gone and I can never get it back. And suddenly realizing, but I've been holding that baby and busy with that baby all day long. So why am I doing this to myself? Why am I allowing the devil to just come and tell me I've done wrong? I'm not good enough. I haven't made it. I've made a mistake again. And it's not true. So one thing, this whole concept, we spoke about it previously, but that nothing is really missing. And it so spoke to my heart because it is so true of everything we can say. And I've thought back a lot over the years in my own childhood and things that happened. And when this idea came, it really blessed me in the sense that we always say, but I didn't have this and I didn't have that. But sometimes we want something to look like a picture we have in our mind. We want it to be in a specific way. So we have pictures of what, how we should have been treated as children, or how we should treat our children now that we are parents. But it's not always the only way. Is there a right and a wrong in raising children? As many people as there are, as many ways and as many forms it will take. So to realize that nothing is really missing. When you think back of your own parents, go sit down and write what you really wanted. What did you expect, or what do you think you missed out on? And then write that down and start thinking on how it maybe you did receive it, but in a different form. Maybe not the way you expected it. Maybe your mother was working and you wanted her to be there full time. But you were a little baby and there was someone who was taking care of you. You weren't left alone there in a room. So there was someone who took care of you. Maybe you wanted your mother, but it's not that you did not have someone. And to realize that God provides maybe just not the way we expect it. And even with our children, we feel so guilty, but we spoke last week about the grandparents and the whole support structure that we actually have. And I think we sometimes blame ourselves for things we cannot do for our children or be there, but then a grandmother or grandfather or an uncle or aunt comes in and they do something for that child, and you still feel guilty that you weren't there, but it was great. That child is satisfied. They had what they wanted or what they needed in the situation. So I think to sit down and say, I do what I can, but nothing is really missing. If I can't be there, then just organize that someone is there. And that is fine. Just to start relaxing and to start enjoying life and not be so finicky about all the little thingies that we want a specific way and have that set picture in our minds, because we have that set picture and that picture is constantly tripping us because we cannot attain to that specific picture. And that picture, the funny thing is, life always works out differently than we expected. And something will always happen for you to even change that picture and then not be able to attain to it. So stop doing that. Just take it as it comes. You plan, but if it's not the same way, fine. It works out well in the end. We spoke last week about the marriage, so I'm not going to say much about that tonight, but just remember that your marriage is the most important. When we speak about the mother specifically, I want to really underline the fact that your marriage is more important than your children. I think we know that with our minds, but when our children are very small, it's sometimes because of the statistics. We are just so busy with those small children, and they need us so much. And we cannot just push them aside. It is not possible. They need to be fed, they need to be changed, they need to be bathed, they need to be put to sleep. They just need us so much that it is a very natural and a simple transition to make, that we start almost like living for them and not for part of the team that we are. So for us as mothers, it's something that we must always concentrate on and always have in the back of our minds, that focus. It's just not sometimes the time that we put into our children, but the focus of, are they the most important, or even when you just give a smile at the right time, or just see that there's something specific that you do to show that your focus is still right. Sometimes that's all that is expected of us, but to have that focus right and to make special times for our husbands and to be there when they need us. It's not always possible, but that focus is really important. Raising children is not a short-term project. It is something that is going to go on for 18 years at least. And the longer I live now and the more my children grow over that age, I suddenly realize it will never stop. There's a time in your life when you think, okay, well, if I can just survive this until they are 18 and then it's over, I've done my job, I've done my duty, and I've done it well. And it's not like you don't want to do it. It's just like, all right, when they get to 18, I will now do other things or whatever I can go on. No. When you have children, you have them for the rest of your life, because eventually they will add the marriage partners, and then the grandchildren will come, and I don't think it will ever end. But your main duty is more or less 18 years. And I think to realize how fast it goes, but on the other hand, it is 18 years is 18 years. It is a long time. It's not a marathon. Don't rush things. Don't feel, oh, I haven't done this. Don't go into a nervous state just because you have so little time to do so many things. No, there's time to do things over and over until they get it right and until you get it right. And repetition is what we were made for. We don't always think so, but we were made that way by God, so that it takes time for us to change, time to assimilate something and make it part of who we are. We really think that we hear something and we just go out and apply it, but it doesn't really work that way, does it? Not even for us as adults, and not for children either. It takes time. Don't be upset. I remember I was so upset when my children couldn't get the months of the year, when they couldn't remember that. And I felt so guilty. I felt I'd done something wrong. Because how come we've done this over and over and over and they can't remember it? And we sang songs. I found poems. We said it over and over. We had quizzes on it. We read stories about it, and still they couldn't remember it. And then another mother who is also homeschooling once told me, she said to me, but why are you so upset? Why do you think there's a next grade and a grade after that? And because I haven't taught that grade yet, I haven't taught it yet, I forgot from my own smaller grades or young grades that yes, we will be doing the months of the year over and over and over. That's why next year that will be the basis again, the days of the week and the months of the year, and we will go on like that, and they will constantly be reminded of that over and over. So it is a long-term project, and don't worry if there's mistakes and things like that. We spoke about mothers just living for their husbands, but sometimes we so live for where we are now that we actually lose ourselves. We forget that our parents raised us so that now we are now adults. We must now do what we were made by God to do. So we forget that. We so focus on just these little children, and of course, as I said, they demand that attention and that time, and it's normal, it's absolutely normal, which leaves you in a problem. And I remember my one brother once said to me, he said, if this is really important enough to you, you will make time for it. And I was so upset. Because the children were all small and there was no time. And I was so aware of the fact that there was no time, because I really, really wanted to do these things because they were part of my creation purpose. And there was no time. And he came in and very, very arrogantly, because he wasn't married and he didn't have children yet, told me, if you really want to do something, you will make time. So it was there at the back of my mind all the time. At first I just wrote it off, and then it started bothering me, and I thought about it. And eventually I realized, but it's true. I can take half an hour a day and do something that I really want to do, and I can progress. I discovered actually, with this book on raising children, which was the first book that I actually wrote, and I discovered if even with time to spare, I can write a book at least every 6 months by spending half an hour a day on writing. And what is half an hour a day? So I thought, well, when the day is running, it's impossible, but half an hour earlier in the morning or half an hour later going to bed will do the trick. So it's not that much time that we need. We can really move mountains ourselves, even as mothers, but don't lose track of your creation purpose and of what you are supposed to do. Even for the fathers, sometimes the job situation that we do is not where we really want to be, and you have to start giving yourself for what really you really love doing and want to do, and it's got to be in your after hours time. So the same thing. It's not that much time that we need. We don't need days and months and years. We rather lack the discipline to make use of that few moments at a time. So to really just focus on that few times. What did I do with my notes now? Sorry. Yes, as I was thinking about the whole fact that part of that thing is life is full of decisions. We live in a world where someone made the very apt statement that there was a time when there was this proverb or saying that you have to have it all. You can have it all. But now that has changed to you must have it all. And I think, and you need it all. And I think it's so... it's true in the one sense, but it's so absolutely untrue in the other. Because life is full of decisions. And you cannot be everywhere at once, and you can't have everything at once. Even if you have billions of rands, you cannot be in 2 places at once. You have to decide where you want to be now. And every decision that you make has consequences. So to really decide what is it that I must have, then say no to the rest. Where must I be now? And where must I be tonight? Or where must I be tomorrow? And what must I do? And then say no to everything else. And to really make a habit of doing that constantly. Because we can waste time doing good things, not necessarily the right thing. And that is always a problem, because our time really just slips by doing things that I don't think we should sometimes be doing. And sometimes we should just be sitting down and just thinking about life when we are actually so busy, and that sometimes is also wrong. So to always just keep that in mind, to prioritize and do what is important now. Another thing that I discovered being a mother is that I think that when we talk about just that feeling that we talked about in the beginning of everything being too much and everything just feeling so overwhelmed with the task at hand, if that feeling persists, it is almost like what other people so talking about so much late in the modern society of burnout, is that we become so overwhelmed and so running, and we really don't feel satisfied anymore. Why not? Because apart from finding your satisfaction in God and your quiet time, which is on a spiritual level, remember we said we are body, soul, and spirit. On a spiritual level, you may be fulfilled and still feel unfulfilled, because your soul also needs fulfillment. And that is sometimes something that we sometimes neglect, and often as mothers we neglect, mostly just because of time. Now, someone described it as having an emotional tank, that in the top side, the water comes running in. At the bottom, there's the tap that everyone is tapping from. But if no water is coming in at the top anymore, then they will keep tapping from the bottom, but there's no more water. It's just that muddy residue that's drizzling out, and that's not good for anyone anymore. The interesting thing is what makes us tick emotionally. And I started, when I realized that at that stage, I started talking to other mothers and to other people, and discovering that it's sometimes really small, insignificant things. One mother said to me, her home is next to on a mountain slope, and in Pretoria near the zoo, and she looks out over the city, like a veranda or a stoop that she has on her house. And she said in the afternoons when she comes home, she's a single mom with a bit older children, and she said when she comes home, they all know. Half an hour, they don't even almost come near her. They greet her and they go on with what they've been busy. And she makes herself a cup of coffee and just sits there on the stoop and watches the sun set over the city. Just sits there, just sitting there with her cup of coffee and just enjoying that moment. And that for her gives her the emotional energy and the filling up from teaching school children all day. She completely feels revived, and she just gets up, and then she's got all the time in the world for her own children. Other people, I've heard one friend of mine said she buys a magazine and she goes and sits in a coffee shop. She just pages through the magazine and have a cup of coffee, and then she's fine. She's happy. Other people like to read. Other people go and walk. Other people maybe like to do some craft things or exercise, a sport, or there are so many things that we do that doesn't necessarily take a lot of time, but it just gives you that emotional fulfillment, just that small something that makes you feel, oh, now I feel I can go on again. Not necessarily your purpose in life, maybe just that little something. I used to say to people, especially when the kids were younger, and I remember Arnie would say, why are you taking so much of your last little bit of energy to sit there behind the needlework and just, sit there and embroider or be busy on the machine? And he'd say, Paul, go and sleep. You need the rest. And I'm like, yeah, but I need this more than I need some more sleep. I'm desperately in need of sleep, but I need to create more than I need sleep. For me to not create something, and it's different. It's not always the same thing. I like variety, but for me to not be busy doing just a small craft thingy, it needn't be a big thing, to knit a scarf or just something small, it makes me feel alive. I just feel, sure, I've made something. Now I can go on and just be with the kids and do lots of mundane, everyday things. I feel satisfied again. So make sure that your tank is filled. Make sure that you find that small little thing that you feel that, even if it's just one thing and you only get maybe half an hour a week, but to do that little thing so that you feel satisfied and revived and you can just go on again, because we really need that, especially when the kids are small. They can really tap a lot of you. And then in spite of whatever you do, and in spite of how much you give and sacrifice, your best is not always enough. I say to people, every now and again, I really make an effort of doing something special for the family, for the kids, for my husband. I really sit down, because I'm not, when life starts happening and it's so busy, you get into a mode where everything just flows by and it just gets so boring to just sit and think, all right, what can we do that's exciting? And then we start planning, and then I go to my husband and I say, well, what's the finances? Say, can we do this? Can we not do this? Or maybe it's just something that doesn't even cost us money, but whatever it is, and we put a lot of effort into this and we start making this a reality. We do this now. And then if I can take our 6 children, they are almost always divided into 3 groups, especially now that they are bigger. When they are small, you don't necessarily notice it so much, but now that they are grown and they all have ideas of their own and likes and dislikes of their own, then more or less 2 of them would be over the moon. They would be like, you love us so much and we are so grateful and you are the best parents in the world. They are so excited. Some of their personalities might not be so over the moon, but you can just see you've made their day, and they will be so excited. And then 2 of them will be, thank you. This is nice. This is really great, but what's the big deal? I mean, really? but they like it. They're happy. And then 2 of them are like, you don't love us. You really don't love us. So I really discovered that whatever I do, And even if I do it with the best intentions and with such excitement and love, out of the love of my heart, it's not always enough. And it's not always what they wanted. And what I do for all of them will not satisfy all of them. And that sometimes it makes it hard, and you feel like, what can I do to change that? And I came to the realization that you cannot. You do something now that makes some of them happy, and then sometimes the other part are happy, and then that's just the way life is, because we are different. And as long as they see your heart, and as long as you give what you have to give, it's good enough. And you know, and God knows. And if they are still not happy with it, there's really nothing much that you can do about it. Deciding to be happy is something that comes from inside as well. And to teach kids that no matter whether you like everything or it's perfect in your eyes, it's not maybe what you wanted, but you can see the other person gave their best. And that's really the only solution, is to teach them that. But for you to realize that I am satisfied before God, He's my fulfillment as well. Nothing is always the way I want it. Sometimes I plan a day, and my goodness, not just sometimes, most days, it works out completely different. But isn't that just what life is about? It's not the way you expect it. Remember, we said our picture. We have a picture in our mind, and it's not the way we thought it should be. And we had a plan for this day, for things we wanted to do. I have a to-do list for every day, and it doesn't work out that way. But to be flexible and to realize that God is my fulfillment. And I can be happy in spite of things that's not the way I thought they should be. And that whatever happened is still fine. It's still good. I can be satisfied because God is my fulfillment. I remember years ago when my oldest two children were really just babies. The one was about a month old, and the older one was 17 months old. My husband was away in the army, and he was doing his basic training, so there was no contact whatsoever. He was far away, and so I was responsible for these two little ones. And the one was sleeping at night and the other one at day, and they changed around completely. So I counted. It was important that I count. Don't ask me why. But I kept chastising myself by actually counting. And I never, in those first few, at least 6 weeks until Daddy came home, there was no time, not one night that I had more than 3 hours sleep if I added all the bits and pieces together. Now, I'm not a very good person going without sleep. I'm not a good sleeper, but if I don't get enough sleep, the little bit that I need, so when the kids would just wake me up at all and any hours of the night, then I would just lie awake in between, and I really don't sleep much. So, and then one night I remember I was really, really so tired. I really just couldn't do this anymore. And I remember I was standing there and I was saying, I can't do this anymore. And I so distinctly felt in my spirit God saying, you are still standing. Just the words, you are still standing. And I was so upset because that's not what I wanted to hear. I needed some sympathy. But it's not what I really needed. What I needed was someone to give me that slap and to tell me, listen, what are you doing? Because you are just feeling sorry for yourself. What you're actually doing is not that you cannot do this anymore. Somewhere along this process, you've decided, subconsciously, I do not want to do this anymore. Because it's not nice anymore. This is not fun anymore. And I don't want to do this anymore. And when you decide, even if it is subconsciously, you don't want to do it anymore, then you think you can't. But it's not that I cannot. I was still standing. And that was one of the decisive moments in my life for me to realize that even if I think I can't, I can. I'm still doing it. Even if I don't want to do it, I am still doing it because of necessity. I am doing it. There's no one else to look after these babies, and I am the one. So I'm still doing it. Whether I want to or can't, it's actually I don't want to. And I have to change my attitude. I have to make the decision consciously that I can and I want to. If I change my attitude, the same circumstance that just moments ago felt like, or maybe takes a little bit longer sometimes, maybe days or weeks ago felt like I cannot do this anymore. Suddenly you realize you actually do it and you actually enjoy it. And it's good, but you must get your attitude in line. And unless you do that, you will really sink. You will not. You will still be doing whatever you need to do, but it will be so negative, and it will be in such a negative mindset that it will be hard on you and on the people around you, not just you. So for me, that was really a very decisive moment in my life to realize I can do it. I am still standing. And on that note, when we talk about being negative, one thing I've realized that very quickly almost scared me is that, have you noticed when you get up in the morning, like we have that proverb that says we get up on the wrong side of the bed, and you're a little bit cranky. If you have small children, have you noticed how fast they go cranky? I've timed them. When mine were young, and when they are very young, it takes about 10 minutes to half an hour. Then everyone is just at each other's throats, and nothing is good anymore, and it's just chaos. And I started realizing it's me. The mother may be, or the woman may be the weaker of the husband and wife party, in the sense of physically, but emotionally, we are the strong ones. And emotionally, that is our task, to keep things together and to keep everyone together. We are the emotional builders in the home. And if we have a negative attitude, if we have negative emotions, not that it's not sometimes there and things happen and we are sometimes really sad and things happen and life is not always easy. But if we are moody and cranky, then very soon everyone else follows. And it's not that it's always us. Sometimes it can be, I've seen my husband being upset about something, but if I then go after that mood, then of course it's chaos in the house. And sometimes what scared me was that the others may not even know what it's all about. I don't even know what it's about. I wake up and I don't feel good. And David said to his soul, "Soul, why are you upset in me? Why are you upset?" He spoke to his soul and he said, there's a scripture that says, I call God as a witness against my soul. And I think for us as women, that is the bastion to which we must cling, is to say, I call God as a witness against my soul. I don't understand why I feel like this now. I don't understand, and let's be honest, sometimes it's just those hormone things that we don't really know why or what. There's no reason for it really, or no cure for it at the moment. But to say, I call God as a witness against how I now feel. Because maybe now I'm not the shining example of victory, but I know that I am. In Christ, I am. And if we start saying that and holding on to that, no matter how we feel, we will see how things start getting better and better. I always think of those scriptures that say, be happy at all times. Be happy always be happy. We teach that to the little children and we sing songs about it. And then we don't realize what it really means, to always be happy. And that's what God wants us to be. He wants us to always be joyful, because joy and love is His attributes. It's His character qualities, is to always be happy and joyful no matter what, because it's faith in Him. It's believing in Him who has the end result, who has the outcome, the victory for whatever situation. We may not know what to do, but He knows. And I've come to realize that He says that is why you must be joyful. It's just that faith in me. So to change our attitudes and to realize that strength, for me as a woman, to realize that I may be the weaker, I almost said the weaker link, but the weaker sex, but to realize that I am, in a sense, the strongest. I hold the family together. As the woman, I hold the family together. And that thought, that realization, that reality gave me a strength to build on. I no longer feel the weaker. I know that I have a strength, and I know that I have a responsibility. And I'm not saying that I'm always victorious. I'm not saying I'm always there, because we are women and we go through difficult times. But to always keep that in mind, that I am strong. I can do this because I was made to do this. I can do this. God gave me that promise that I can do this. I always think of that scripture that says that you will win your husband even without words. And that's the strength of those emotional strength we have. We can, through our emotional output, the way our emotions that we mirror to other people, the love and acceptance, the drawing power of our emotional strength can cause that we have the victory in Christ. We are strong. So we must use what is seen as our weakness, our emotion, that overflow of emotions that our husbands don't always understand. That is actually our strength. But to rein it in and to master it, to be in control of it for the kingdom and for our children and for our families, to use that emotion to keep everyone together. One thing that helped me, I can be a perfectionist, but I'm not a good organizer. Now, there is a difference between being a perfectionist and being an organizer. And I realized that if I can organize specific things in my home, sometimes it's small things, just having the kitchen finished first thing in the morning, maybe before the kids get up. So which means I must do it before they get up, or the night before. For me, that's like punishment. But if I don't do that, then the next day I will reap the consequences. Once the kids are up and there's no more time to do specific things, then I'm in trouble. Because now I can't get myself together because there's chaos. So to realize my weaknesses is I cannot function in chaos. So what must I do? What must I organize to be prepared? To be in front of the situation so that I'm not caught off guard. Small things like taking out the meat for the next meal well ahead of time so that by the time I need to use it, thank goodness for microwaves, but sometimes they don't work for all kinds of meals. So you have to be prepared beforehand and to just make a note, just a mental note, what are we going to, because we're going to have to eat. I'm going to have to prepare that meal. There's not going to happen a miracle and it's just going to appear there miraculously. I'm the one who's going to have to put it there. So what am I going to put there? And just see that I start in time, or that I have the necessary things in place. And it just helped me to just get ahead of the situation and not be so completely overwhelmed when something goes wrong and a child gets sick or something happens and a friend comes visiting, and then it's just chaos by the time I have to get that meal on the table. But to be just a bit more prepared. You can never be completely prepared for everything that small children and your husband and the world will bring on your table. But at least you can have a head start. At least you can effectively contain the problems. You can make it less and make it handleable. You are in control still. You can manage it. It's manageable. So sit down and think what will work for you. I have specific recipes that I use that I can, I know them by heart. Things that I do to make life easier for me, and it works for us. It works for my lifestyle. So, yes. The kids, I've mentioned this before in one of the sessions, I remember, but to realize that because you are at home does not mean that you are spending time with your children. And that's a big thing, because there is so much to do, that you will never get everything done. And some of us are doers, and you are so focusing on what must get done, and others, even if you're not that specific kind of doer, you still realize that there are a lot of things in a day. And we don't always specifically spend time with the children. I realized for me it works if I have specific projects or specific times. Maybe if the younger kids are off to bed in the afternoons, I would have the older ones one by one and spend time with them. Have a special project with them so that I feel I must go sit down with them and we work on this thing. But just me and that child, or to have specific time slots for each child to just spend, even if it's a little bit of time, even if it's half an hour a day, or even if you just go. Sometimes I would go lie down for that nap with a child. Not always the same one, and not every afternoon, because otherwise they expect me to do that, and then I'm in problems again. But just to use a specific time for a child, to just give them that one-on-one attention. And sometimes we are so busy just doing things for everyone and just coping with the homework. We are there. We're at home all day. And for the mothers that work, it's even worse, because they come home at night and there is just that much time, and there's got to be food on the table, and if you do not have someone to help you in the home, you need to do the washing, and you need to plan for the next day, and the kids' homework have to be checked, so it's even less time. But make a time. Even if you sit down and you watch a story with them, or you read them a story and you talk to them about it, even that specific attention, you build a puzzle. It needn't be a huge thing, but just that attention that you give to them and with them. We played a lot of games together. I enjoyed that. They got to an age where they didn't want to do that anymore, and then I had to change tactics. But playing games with children always works well, especially when they are younger. It works perfectly. So, and then to remember that in all of this, you have to have fun. You have to have fun. Life is not funny. Life can sometimes just become so serious, and so you can really feel overwhelmed, and it feels like more of a job. I found that in my life, for me now you want me to think the fun. I mean, really, can everyone just help? But to realize in the end that unfortunately it always seems to be part of the mom's job as well, is to think out fun things to do, to keep things fun. I remember when the kids were very small, I would just go to the park with them with a small picnic basket, and even if we just have a fruit in the park, for them it was different. It was fun. I would take the small plastic containers and pack their own little thingy in those containers. And in a family with a lot of children, and it's always shared everything. They have their own little thing with sweeties or their little sandwiches packed in there, or whatever it is, and just do something different. Just do something fun. Even if you have picnic in your own backyard, it's different than having it around the table inside. Just do something that you don't ordinarily do. So it needn't be extra that you have to take all that extra energy that you really don't always have, but to make life fun, just to still smile. Mothers, and I was thinking especially about teachers, and like me, when I've been a teacher now as well as a mother for 23 years now, and it's not always the most appreciated job. In fact, I've heard so many people say of teachers that if you don't get a job as anything else, just fall back on teaching, because there's always a shortage of teachers. Isn't that what we have in our minds about teachers? That, we just fall back on that. There's always that thought. But teaching, I think, is incredibly important. The same as mothers. We have this thing of, what are you doing? And I'm a stay-at-home mom. Oh, so you're not working? We all know that one, don't we? We say, you're not working. I'm like, I think I'm working harder than you are. But it doesn't help to say that, because nobody believes that. They think you sit there on the sofa with a cup of tea all day. I mean, really? What does mothers do at home all day? Nothing. It's so nice. You're on holiday all the day. So to try and explain it to people, and to try and explain the importance of what you are doing is almost impossible. You must realize that you have an important job. I was thinking of the whole Abram-Sarah thing, and God saying to Abram, calling his name, changing his name to tell him that you are a father of many nations. But how many children did Abram and Sarah have? These father and mother of a mighty nations. One. One child. That's the importance of parenthood, is they had one child to form and shape that would make a difference in generations to come. Not just generations. The Hebrew nation that started with Abram is still today with us. How many thousands of years later? And it started with one boy that they had to raise. One boy they had to raise. So keep that in mind, that you are actually raising nations. Each of us are raising nations to come. That's the importance of what you are doing. It's not just keeping the kids busy or just being at home. You have an important job. We've spoken about it before. But just realize for yourself, to in yourself own up to that responsibility. Even if people think nothing of what you do, even if they look down at it and they think, but you've just thrown away all your opportunities, and now just being a mother. Someone mentioned not long ago of this mother who someone asked in a group. They asked her, "So what do you do?" She said, "No, I'm at home with the children." She said, "But before that," because she was a bit older, she said, "No, I'm a doctor." And this one man, he looked at her and he said, "Oh, you've been promoted." To realize that it's actually a promotion to be able to work with children and to raise them as the next generation. It's not a demotion, it's a promotion. So have fun with that. Just realize that what you are doing is important. It's not just filling time or just keeping the kids busy or yourself busy or just doing nothing at home. You are building a family. You are building nations to come. And God knows that. God appreciates that. And He appreciates what you are doing. And if you put your heart and your soul into it, you may not see the results on the short term. You may not see it today or tomorrow. But when your children start leaving the home and they start saying the same things you do, when they start doing the same things you've done, when not maybe in exactly the same way, but when they carry on the same values, then you realize it was worth it. It's worth it. I was a success. What I did was good, and it's a success. Even if they leave the home, because that's what happens, is that kids leave the home at a time when they think they can now do it better than their parents, which means that normally, especially for the mother, there's not all that appreciation. They will say it too. Now, I will do this differently. I will do that differently. Now, this is great. Thank you. We love you, but we will do this differently. And you have to smile and you have to realize in yourself, who am I in Christ? And what did God say? And what did I accomplish? And that it's a normal part of life. It's not that they don't appreciate you. They just don't realize right now. And it's part of God's plan for them to leave. Because if they are so satisfied with the way you do it and being at home, they will never leave. You don't want that, do you? So in order for them to get up the courage, to muster the courage to leave home, they actually start sometimes almost criticizing you and saying, but I will do this better. I will do it different. And in order to do that, they leave you so that they can start their own home. So don't feel criticized. Don't be threatened in what you've done. Yes, they will do it differently than you. Goodness, I hope they do it differently because they are different. But I want them to take with them are the values that I've taught them. The way of life I've taught them. Not the specific way that I have done it, because they will never do it like that. They're not me. They can never be me. I can't expect them to be me. It would be wrong to make them the same as I am. So in saying that, I have to have the maturity to realize that I am fine. I am sufficient. I am successful just the way I am, the way I've given my best, the way I've done what God expected me to do. No matter what anyone else says, no matter what society says, no matter what my friends maybe say, or even the children sometimes say, I have done what God asked me to do, and I've done it well. And in your heart, you will know whether you have given your best. And that is good. That is enough. That's all that's important. Will we do everything right? No, I think we could always do maybe a little bit more or a little bit better. I told you I'm a perfectionist. And I'm always thinking I could have changed that and I could have done that differently. But that's not the point. The point is your heart. At the time, did you give what you had to give? And that's enough. Good. Father, thank you that as mothers, I can just come and just pray for mothers today. Father, that they will realize their value, their true value in you, and that you see them as maybe the most important job of all. Father, fathers included, parents, how important our job is, more than anything we will ever do on this earth in raising the next generation. Father, so that the next generation will serve you. How many times do David say, how many times does the prophet say, I will tell of your wonders to the next generation. I will rise up in the congregation and I will proclaim your works to the generation to come. Father, thank you that we have that privilege as mothers specifically to tell of your wonders and your name to the next generation. Amen.